The hollow moon had always been silent, but that night it screamed. Deep inside its cold, silver shell was a single cage. It was not for prisoners, soldiers, or even war criminals. It was for one living thing, as the galaxy called it by many names. The Shadow Maw, the Hunger, the End Beast, but the humans in old myths had a simpler word: predator. It had been captured long ago after wiping out the populations of 3 planets and forcing entire fleets to retreat. The cage was built with layers of energy fields, quantum locks, and matter walls thicker than any warship's hull. No one believed it could escape. No one wanted to imagine what would happen if it did. But tonight, the impossible happened. The first sign was not a sound, but the absence of one. The heartbeat-like hum of the moon's containment systems went silent. In the control tower, the guards stared at their screens, confusion turning to fear. Their scanners went dark, replaced by a flicker of static, and then a single red mark. In the center of the display, one officer, voice shaking, whispered, That's inside the cell." Before anyone could react, the entire tower lost power. Emergency lights flashed. Then came the alarms, not the usual shrill sirens, but a deep, drawn-out wail that seemed to echo in the bones. The locks disengaged on their own, one after another, as if an invisible hand was peeling the cage open like a fruit. The doors blew outward, not inward, as though the thing inside had been waiting, pushing, ready for years. The first 2 guards who tried to run were never seen again. The cameras caught only the briefest image, a blur of motion, a shadow that bent around the light, and 2 bright points like eyes, though no one could agree on the color. Some swore they were silver, others said gold, but everyone agreed on one thing: looking into them felt like drowning. The predator did not roar or snarl, it simply moved. It passed through corridors without leaving footprints, yet every sensor it touched burned out. Where it went, the temperature dropped. Entire security squads vanished in seconds. The few survivors claimed they never even saw it, they just felt something behind them, and then nothing. The galaxy's deadliest prisoner had been free for less than an hour before the hollow moon itself became a graveyard. Outside, in the nearest patrol sector, a dozen ships received a desperate broadcast from the moon's command. The message was garbled, but one word repeated over and over: loose. By the time they arrived, the moon's surface was cracked, as if something had punched through from the inside. There was no trace of the creature. The fleets searched for weeks, but it had vanished into the dark. The Council of Worlds called an emergency session. Entire species argued over what to do. Some demanded fleets be sent to hunt it. Others insisted it was hopeless. The predator had escaped once before, long before humanity had even discovered faster-than-light travel in that time. It had taken 300 ships to corner it. In the middle of the chaos, a new voice cut through a human voice. "Captain." Mara Vance stood in the council chamber, her hands resting on the table, her eyes steady. "You won't find it the way you're looking," she said. The alien delegates turned toward her, some with amusement, others with open disdain. Humanity was young compared to the elder races, barely a few centuries in space. "And you think you will?" one delegate sneered. "Yes," Mara answered simply, "because we're not hunting it for glory. We're hunting it because it already came for us once." The chamber went silent. No one had heard of this, Mara explained in few words. Years ago, long before the Hollow Moon prison, the Predator had attacked an unregistered human research station on the edge of explored space. There had been no survivors. The loss had been hidden, buried under classified reports, because no one had believed the story. But Mara had seen the last transmission, a half-minute of video in which a shadow passed across the screen, and then a human voice screamed, "It's learning!" That scream had stayed with her every night since. Now it was free again. The Predator was out there, somewhere moving in the darkness between stars. The Council debated, but in the end, they could not stop her. Humanity sent its ships, not the largest, not the fastest, but the quietest. They would not announce their hunt. They would not share their plans. And as Mara's ship slipped into the void, she stood on the bridge, looking out into the endless dark. Somewhere out there The deadliest predator in the universe was moving. She intended to find it. What no one yet knew, not the council, not the other hunters, not even her crew, was that the predator wasn't running. It was waiting. And humanity was heading straight into its hunting ground, ChatGPT said. The predator had been gone for weeks, and yet its presence felt closer every day. Across the galaxy, fleets from dozens of species searched the void, but every report ended the same way. No trace found, no signal, no sighting. Humanity's approach was different. Captain Maravance had not brought the fastest ships, nor the most powerful weapons. She had brought 6 quiet hunters, each spread far apart, each running silent. No radio chatter, no energy spikes, no navigation beacons. If the predator learned from sound and light, then they would move like ghosts. In deep space, stillness was a weapon. Her crew didn't waste time following the paths where the predator had been sighted in the past. Those places were nothing but graves now, drifting debris with no living clues. Instead, they focused on something others had ignored, the places it avoided. Every hunter in the galaxy looked for where it had struck. Mara wanted to know where it chose not to strike. Liam, her ship's scientist, spent sleepless nights running old attack patterns through human-made prediction software. What emerged was unsettling. The predator didn't roam randomly. Its movements curved and swayed, looping like a snake about to strike. It wasn't fleeing from the hunters. It was shaping the battlefield. 2 weeks into the search, one of the human ships, Silent Reach, detected something strange. A faint chemical trail, barely measurable, drifting through the void. No natural source matched it. The crew followed it into an asteroid cluster. At first, there was nothing, just rock and ice, tumbling in the dark. But the ship's hull. Sensors picked up microscratches along the asteroid's surfaces, as though something had scraped against them at incredible speed. "It's here," Mara said over secure comms, her voice calm but sharp. They found the first real sign of the predator's passing in a debris field the size of a small moon. In the center floated a ship, or what was left of one. It was massive, from a species known for building war machines that could withstand planetary bombardment. But the hull had been torn apart in perfect clean cuts, not explosions, not melting from energy weapons. Something had sliced through it with surgical precision. And there was no sign of the crew, no bodies, not even blood. Only empty armor suits drifting in the dark, their visors shattered from the inside. As the Silent Reach moved closer, the crew's comms flickered. Static hissed. Then came a low pulse, so faint it almost went unnoticed. It wasn't a sound in the air. It was in their skulls, like the echo of a heartbeat that wasn't their own. Some of the crew pressed their hands to their temples, eyes watering from sudden pain. Liam muttered under his breath, "It knows we're here." Mara ordered a retreat from the debris field, but the sensors began picking up movement in the asteroids behind them, too fast to track, appearing in one location and then vanishing before the computer could lock on. The crew stayed silent, every eye on the blackness beyond the glass. Then in a blink, it appeared. The predator was not a hulking monster as many had imagined. It was sleek, almost beautiful, its body shifting in ways the mind struggled to follow, its skin bent light, making it shimmer like it wasn't fully in this reality. It moved without inertia, without drag, without any respect for the laws that bound everything else. The humans froze. The predator didn't attack, drifted alongside the ship for a heartbeat, its head tilting as if studying them. Then it smiled. It's not with lips, but something in the way its form curved gave the shape of a smile, and then it was gone, vanishing into the dark between one blink and the next. When the crew could breathe again, Mara gave the order to resume the hunt. But she did not tell them what she already knew from the patterns. This was not a chance encounter. It had let them see it. And if Liam's predictions were right, they weren't chasing the predator at all. They were already inside its hunting ground, and it was starting to close the circle. The asteroid belt was silent, but the silence felt wrong. The humans had been drifting there for hours, their engines cold, their lights dim, waiting for any sign of movement. Every few minutes, a faint thud echoed through the hull, tiny fragments of rock tapping against the metal skin of the silent reach. The crew barely spoke. They all knew the predator was close. The problem was, it wanted them to know. The first strike didn't come from the dark. It came from the ship's own systems. One moment the lights were steady, the next they flickered, replaced by a faint red glow. Warnings filled the air. Hull breach detected. Life support failing? But the readings made no sense. The hull was intact, the oxygen was fine, yet the ship's computers kept insisting they were dying. Mara ordered a manual shutdown of the automated systems, but the alarms kept sounding. Not through speakers inside their heads. Dr. Elson, the medic, gripped the edge of the table, his face pale. "This isn't a malfunction," he whispered. "It's inside our minds." The crew traded uneasy looks. No one asked how that was possible. They didn't want the answer. Then the predator appeared again, this time without warning. It didn't approach slowly one moment. The asteroid field was empty. The next it was there. Just meters from the hull, gliding alongside them like a shadow given shape. Up close, its form was even harder to understand. It wasn't scales, fur, or armor. Its skin seemed to be made of shifting patterns, like smoke trapped under glass, moving in ways that made the eyes ache. It moved suddenly, darting across their viewports in a blur too fast for the mind to track. The ship shuddered, not from impact, but as though the space around it had been twisted. Panels fell from the ceiling, sparks spat from consoles. Predator had never touched them, yet it was tearing the silent reach apart piece by piece. "Fire," Mara ordered, her voice cold and steady. The crew obeyed, unleashing a burst of railgun rounds and plasma bolts into the void. For a heartbeat, the predator vanished behind the explosion of light. Then, out of the blinding flare, it came forward faster, sharper, and the crew heard something they would never forget. It laughed. It wasn't a human laugh. It wasn't. Even a sound meant for ears, but the meaning was clear. It was amusement. It was mockery. The humans' weapons, their technology, their precision, all of it was entertainment to the thing watching them. It could have killed them in that instant. Instead, it spun away, weaving between the asteroids like it was dancing. Liam's voice shook as he spoke. "It's testing us." Mara didn't answer. She was staring at the readings on her screen, fragments of data left behind in the predator's wake. Energy signatures, movement speeds, trajectory arcs. None of it matched any known species or technology. But one thing became clear. It wasn't wandering. Every movement it made was leading them somewhere. Hours later, they found what that somewhere was. In the shadow of a massive asteroid floated the remains of 3 alien ships, their hulls shredded, their crews gone. Ships weren't ancient wrecks. They were fresh kills. And on the side of the largest one, etched deep into the metal, was a shape burned into the surface, 2 curved lines meeting at the ends. A smile. Mara's grip tightened on the arm of her chair. The predator wasn't just hunting, it was leaving messages. And now, there was no doubt in her mind, they weren't chasing it. It was pulling them deeper into its territory step by step, and it wanted them to follow. The trap had taken days to prepare. Every calculation, every piece of equipment, every movement had been done in silence. The humans had studied the predator's speed, its reaction time, the strange way it could vanish from sensors. And they had built something no other species had dared to try, a collapsing gravity well. It was an artificial singularity, eh? Pocket of crushing force designed to seal itself the moment anything entered. If it worked, not even light would escape. If it failed, there would be nothing left of the ship that triggered it. The plan was simple in theory. Lure the predator into the kill zone with a bait ship broadcasting false distress signals. Then collapse the well around it before it had a chance to react. But the predator was never simple prey. The bait ship drifted alone in the black, its lights flickering like a dying ember. The crew of the Silent Reach waited just beyond sensor range, their hands hovering over the controls. Minutes stretched into hours. Then, without warning, every display lit up with movement, fast, erratic, weaving through space like a living shadow. It was coming. The crew held their breath as the predator closed in. It slowed near the bait ship, circling it, almost lazily, like a cat deciding whether to play with a mouse or eat it whole. Now, Mara ordered. The collapsing field. Activated. Space itself twisted inward, the pull so intense that nearby asteroids began to crack apart. For a moment it seemed to work. The predator jerked in mid-motion, its form distorting as the gravity well began to drag it in. Then it stopped struggling, before anyone could react. It darted sideways at an impossible angle, bypassing the bait ship entirely. The gravity well surged, but instead of pulling the predator in, it caught something else, the silent reach. The crew scrambled to shut it down, alarms screaming, metal groaning under the strain. Another human ship fired a precision shot, destabilizing the well just enough for the silent reach to break free. 1 second slower and they would have been crushed into atoms. They never saw where the predator went until they found what it left behind. Floating between them and the wreckage of the bait ship were pieces of a human pressure suit. The visor was shattered from the inside. The fabric was cleanly sliced, and the suit was empty. Shock rippled through the crew. The suit's markings identified it as belonging to Lieutenant Carver, from a different ship, miles away from the trap. How the predator had taken him without anyone noticing was a question no one wanted to answer. Over the next days, it became a game of survival. The humans began laying smaller traps, mines disguised as debris, hidden drones that mimicked damaged ships, trails of false scent particles meant to confuse the predator's tracking. Some worked for a while, but the predator adapted faster. It began showing up behind them instead of ahead. Sometimes they caught glimpses of it just outside the viewports, its head tilted, its strange almost smile curling again. Then the messages began. Pieces of wreckage floated into their path, alien weapons, scraps of armor, sometimes just shards of metal, each one marked with that same curved symbol. The smile burned deep into its surface. And more often now, the wreckage wore human colors. Mara stayed calm in front of the crew, but she knew what it meant. The predator wasn't simply evading them. It was answering their hunt with a hunt of its own. And if they didn't change the rules soon, it wouldn't matter how clever their traps were, because they were already the prey. The crew was tired, not from lack of sleep, but from the weight of knowing they were being watched every second. Every shadow on the sensors, every flicker of light outside the viewport could be it. No alien hunter had lasted this long against the predator, and yet here the humans were, still alive. But survival wasn't victory, and Mara knew the predator was learning with each encounter. What the other species didn't understand was that humans learned just as fast, sometimes faster, while alien fleets relied on flawless strategies and unchanging tactics. Humans thrived in chaos. They could improvise with broken tools, fight with whatever they had, and turn mistakes into weapons. Mara began to change the way they hunted. Instead of following predictions, they started acting without patterns. No one in the crew knew the full plan except her. She gave false orders to her own people so that even if the predator could read their movements, it wouldn't be able to see the real attack coming. Liam worked quietly in the lab, assembling strange weapons from scrap, leftover tech from wrecked alien ships, and even pieces of their own damaged systems. They weren't clean or elegant. They were unpredictable things the predator had never seen before. Dr. Elson, though shaken, began monitoring the crew's brain activity, searching for a way to block the psychic pulse it used to invade their thoughts. It wasn't perfect, but even a few seconds of resistance could mean the difference between life and death. Then came the moment that changed everything. While tracking faint movement near a cluster of frozen moons, the silent reach picked up a signal, human, encrypted, and old. It was coming from inside the ice. They sent a drone to investigate and found the wreckage of a small research vessel, its hull ripped apart but its core systems somehow still running. Inside was a single surviving log file. Mara played it on the bridge. The recording showed a man in a blood-stained lab coat, breathing hard. His voice was shaking, but his eyes were wild with determination. If anyone finds this, it's not killing for food. It's not killing for territory. It's training. Coughed, looking. Off-screen, as a shadow passed behind him, it's learning to fight you. Every kill, every trap it escapes, it adds to itself. If it survives long enough, nothing in the galaxy will stop it. Not even humans. The recording ended with a burst of static, and the faint sound of that low, pulsing laugh. The bridge was silent. Liam's hands clenched into fists.
Ouch.
Looked sick. Mara only stared at the frozen moons outside the viewport. The Predator wasn't trying to avoid them. It was using them as the ultimate challenge. Out of all the hunters in the galaxy, humanity was the only prey worth its time. That night, Mara gathered the crew. We've been chasing it like everyone else. That's over. We're not the hunters. We're the bait, and if it wants us so badly, we're going to give it a fight it'll never walk away from. The crew nodded, their fear tempered by something harder, resolve. They knew what was coming. The Predator would follow. It would watch. It would test them. Now, for the first time, the humans had a plan it couldn't predict. A plan born from desperation, madness, and the one advantage no other species had ever used against it. They were going to let the Predator think it had already won. The final stage of the hunt began in the Ghost Rings, a dead system where planets had shattered into billions of icy fragments, all drifting in slow orbits around a dying star. The place was a maze of frozen storms, magnetic shadows, and echoes that could make a ship think it was being followed by dozens of enemies at once. It was perfect. Mara had chosen it for one reason. It was the kind of place no sane captain would fight in, which meant the Predator would follow without hesitation. The silent reach moved through the rings with deliberate slowness, broadcasting just enough energy to leave a trail. In the distance, other human ships, 5 of them circled unseen, hidden within ice clouds and asteroid shadows. They had rigged the rings with their strange new weapons, each one designed not to kill outright, but to confuse, disorient, and trap. The Predator would never be hit with the same trick twice. Hours passed before the sensors picked up the faint, twisting movement they had been waiting for. It was fast, darting from shadow to shadow, sometimes vanishing completely. But this time, the humans didn't fire. They didn't run. They let it get closer. Closer still. Close enough that the faint pulse in their skulls began again, stronger than ever, as if the Predator's thoughts were pressing against their own. Then it struck. It moved like a blade through water, gliding alongside the silent reach, testing its armor with a single scrape of those shifting, unreal claws. Mara gave the signal. The trap was sprung. From the surrounding rings, the other human ships emerged, not from a single direction, but from all sides at once. They didn't fire condensado weapons. They released swarms of nanites programmed to hunt anything that moved with the Predator's unique energy signature. They detonated magnetic bursts that warped space just enough to throw off its impossible movement patterns. They flooded the airless void with clouds of fine metallic dust, turning invisibility into a liability. For the first time, the Predator didn't laugh. It fought. It moved with deadly speed, tearing apart 2 of the swarms before they reached it. It dived into an ice cloud, reappeared behind a human ship, and slashed deep into its hull. But this time, the ship exploded in a controlled burst, throwing it backward into another trap. Every second it spent fighting, the nanites swarmed. Tighter, clinging to its shifting skin, tearing at it bit by bit. The battle lasted hours. The Predator destroyed 3 human ships outright, and still the others pressed in. Mara's voice never wavered as she issued orders, shifting tactics. Every minute, never repeating a move. She wasn't trying to match its speed. She was forcing it to match hers. Finally, the Predator made its first real mistake. Surrounded and slowed by the nanites, it lunged at the silent reach, intent on ending the fight with one decisive kill. Mara's crew had been waiting for this. They triggered the final weapon, a living storm of nanites compressed inside an ice fragment the size of a building. The fragment shattered against the Predator's body, and the swarm consumed it in seconds. Its shifting form twisted violently, its impossible colors bleeding into nothing. It tried to vanish. It tried to laugh. But the sound faded into static, and the light bent one last time before collapsing. When the void went silent, the humans didn't cheer. They only watched the place where it had been, knowing what Liam finally said aloud. "We killed one, not the only one." Mara turned away from the viewport, her voice steady. "Then we'd better be ready for the rest." The ghost rings swallowed their ships as they slipped away into the dark, leaving behind nothing but frozen wreckage and the memory of the day humanity hunted the deadliest predator in the universe.